1955, if you asked someone what a gentleman looked like, they'd likely point straight to Cary Grant. But today it feels like the gentleman has gone completely extinct, replaced over the decades by the Hollywood rebel, the Wall Street wolves, and Silicon Valley rule breakers. So what does it actually mean to be a gentleman today? Hundreds of years ago, the title simply meant you were born into the English nobility as part of the landed gentry. But over time, society realized that being a gentleman shouldn't be about your circumstances, it should be about your behavior. At its core, the idea of a gentleman is a conscious choice. It is a very thin mask of manners and respect that separates us from our raw, evolutionary brute nature. So let's start things off by defining what do we mean by the word gentleman. So a gentleman, per definition, is any man of good and courteous conduct. Now, originally the word gentleman was the lowest rank of the landed gentry of England, ranking below an esquire and above a yeoman. The rank of gentleman comprised the younger sons of the younger sons of peers, and the younger sons of a baronet, a knight, and an esquire, in perpetual succession. So, in a nutshell, a gentleman was someone who had a heritage, who had a blood relation in some way to a bit of nobility. That being said, the gentleman didn't really have any claims, he perhaps didn't have any money, but he did have his name. He did have this title, the gentleman, which separated him from the commoners. Now, as an American in a classless society, that's a joke. But seriously, here in the United States, it's not something that we have a history of nobility and titles. So for us, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But in many other more established countries, like France and the UK, that have a much longer history, the idea that you have heritage, that you have a lineage, was a big deal. Now, the word gentleman was apparently first used in the year 1275, but the word itself actually came into more common usage after the year 1413. Why? Because Henry V passed a law which required that in all original writs of action, personal appeals, and indictments, that the estate, degree, or mystery of the defendant must be stated. Basically, if anything was getting written down, you needed to declare, it needed to be clear who the individual was. And not everyone's going to be an earl, not everyone's going to be a duke, especially if you're a lesser son. Anyone watch Game of Thrones? Yeah, what happens to all the second, third, fourth, fifth sons? Well, if you can't marry them off, they go off to seek their fortune. But these guys wanted to be known, they wanted to be really clear with everyone that they are not a common man. Now, traditionally, this wasn't an issue because you had these second sons, you had these third, fourth, fifth, seventh sons, whatever it is. They were living on the land and they were working it under their fathers. But this became really unattractive after England got decimated with the Black Death and there were wars overseas that you could go over there and make a fortune. So basically, you got these men of noble blood out there trying to make a name for themselves out there in those continental wars, or maybe they're just trying to make their way up in a court of a really high noble house. Point being is they wanted to be known as gentlemen. And by the 16th century, the gentry, as they were called, had pretty much established themselves as a distinct order. Now, what about the right to bear arms? This is where it gets a little bit confusing, and there was a time period where only nobles were able to raise armies to be able to carry weapons, but the idea is that gentlemen had the right to bear arms. And there was a really fluid situation, 16th, 17th century, and basically was if you carried arms, you were known as a gentleman. Gentlemen could carry arms. So you kind of see it was like a circle right here, and the idea of a gentleman being associated with nobility, that pretty much disappeared. And because it was well known that if you could afford it, if you could afford arms, if you also could afford not to work and be able to have time of leisure, you were considered a gentleman. So then we're entering the 19th century, and this is when the word gentleman really made a big deal. It was a sign of status. If you were a gentleman, again, you didn't have to work. You had means, you could bear arms, you could carry a weapon, and you were just thought of as a step above the common man, especially the merchants or the people that had to work labor with their hands. And in fact, if anyone's familiar with the history of cricket, you've probably heard the terms gentleman and player, and you know what the difference is. A gentleman plays cricket, but he doesn't need to be paid. He just does this because he enjoys it, versus a player is actually play. They make money with it, and that is not considered to be gentlemanly. which if you think about it is pretty damn stuck up, but yeah, that's the way it was. So Walt Bettinger, the former CEO of Charles Schwab, multi-billion-dollar finance company, was asked, what's the most important lesson you learned in college? Now, the students asking that question thought he would talk about maybe something with finance, accounting, maybe even marketing. Well, the lesson did come from a business strategy class, but it really had nothing to do with business strategy. The lesson was taught through the final exam with one question, and that one question was, what is the name of the woman that cleans up this building? At that moment, Walt realized that he had seen this woman 100 times and he had never thanked her, had never acknowledged her, had never gotten her name because he was too busy with himself to care about the woman that was taking care of him and making sure when he showed up to that classroom, it was clean, it was orderly, everything was taken care of. The key takeaway from this first point is the rule to treat others the way you would like to be treated. I mean, let's face it, there's a lot of a-holes out there that think that because they're at the top of the company or they're in this position of power that they can crap on people below them. Guys, that needs to stop. We need to treat other people with respect. An old school rule that we need to make sure sticks around. We've got attention manners, and in today's modern world, these are severely lacking for most people. First, remember a person's name. When you're introduced to them, say their name. Make sure you get the pronunciation right and find a way to associate it so you remember it. Seriously, there's all this research out there that shows that people love the sound of their name and they hate it whenever somebody gets their name wrong, says the wrong name, mispronounces it. So start off on the right foot and just simply get how do they say their name, not how you think it should be said, and then say it appropriately. Next up, make sure to listen and show interest, even if that person is boring, even if you've had this conversation before, even if you would rather be somewhere else. People are so bad at this nowadays. They don't know how to be bored. In fact, they've got to reach in and they've got to grab your phone. Another big mistake, do not pull out your phone. Don't even put it on the table. They've shown that even having that phone out on the table between you and somebody else creates a bit of division between you, and you don't want to have that because it is a diversion. It is something that you're thinking about it, you're seeing it, and we are addicted to our phones. Say, oh, I'll put a book out there. I'll be reading a book. No, engage. And what I'm talking about here is showing respect to this other human being who you want to have a conversation. If you're not having a great conversation, well, maybe close it. But while you're having that conversation, be fully vested, be fully there. Oh, yeah, I'm listening. No, you're not. Gentlemen, the reality is when you have your phone, when you're checking that text message, when you've got that headset in, you are not really there. You're just kind of on standby in that conversation, but you're not deep. And people know it. When you're present, when you're engaging with somebody, be 100% there, especially with the people that matter. And these are the people that we blow off. Our partner, our wife, our kids, the people that are good friends, because they'll understand that I may hear from this person that may have some information. No, unless you're going to get a call that's going to change your life, unless this is an appointment that you can't miss and you need to be on top of this. And that's very rare, unless you're a doctor or I don't know, you're doing some type of multi-million-dollar finance deal and you're just waiting for a call that could change everything. The vast majority of the time, that's not the case. And these distractions are pulling away. It used to be when you were with somebody, you gave them 100% of your attention. So try to go back to doing this. Even holding something up like a phone, just checking the time, that creates a distraction. It shows that, hey, you've got something else. You're thinking you need to be somewhere else. Guys, don't be checking your phone. Don't be checking the watch. Be fully engaged. Be fully present. Next up, eye contact. If you're speaking to somebody, if they're speaking to you, you want to give them the respect of your attention, and eye contact is a very clear sign that you are paying attention. In the Western world, about 60 to 70% of the time, you want to maintain eye contact. I know some of you guys over in the East, some of you guys over in maybe India, some of you guys over in South America, rules are maybe a little bit different. So let me know down in the comments how some of these rules, because I know all these mannerisms, they change from culture to culture, country to country. And I want to hear from you guys down in the comments. If you agree, disagree, you've got something to add to make this video better, make sure to let me know down below. Now guys, really quick, a lot of guys make a mistake. They think that just watching a video like this on YouTube is somehow going to make them an expert. Straight up, gents, you have to take this information and put it into action. And one of the best ways to motivate yourself to take action is to put yourself in a community, in a group of like-minded warriors, taking steps to improve their image, their presence, their presentation, and you can find all of that over at our community at school.com/RMRS. Over in our school community, we've got detailed classes, we host challenges, and you can meet and engage with like-minded men taking steps on a daily basis to become their best self. So gents, instead of saying someday, how about you say day one and join our community. I'm putting the link down in the description, in the comments, or you can just go directly to school.com/RMRS. Next up, let's talk about some old school etiquette and manner rules that apply specifically to the ladies. First up on this list, you need to pay for the date. If you ask her out, you pay for that first date. And I know that's a little bit old school. A lot of forums you're going to read, hey, everyone's equal rights. I get that. But here's the thing. When you look at the studies and you talk to women, many of them say, hey, I'm not going to go on a second date with a guy that is that cheap, will not pay for the meal, especially when he asks me out. Now, if she asks you out, the rules may change. You can let me know down in the comments what you think about that. But in general, guys, expect to pay for that first date. It's just an old unspoken rule. Yes, it may be unfair and some of you guys may not like it, but if you want to get a second date, make sure that you pay for that first one. Now, this next one doesn't just apply to women. It applies to anyone that needs help and assistance, but look around, pay attention, be aware of what's going on around you. If a woman is needing help with a stroller, getting down some stairs, and they don't have it set in elevators not nearby, how about you assist? And I'm not saying that you want to take her baby from her, but I am saying maybe you can help unload if she's got a couple boxes or if she's got a bag, she was out doing shopping, whatever it may be, find a way to assist others. The other day I'm getting on an airplane and I'm a few rows back and there is a woman that needs help and there's two guys there. No one even offers her assistance. And of course, I get up, walk over. The thing is, you got to be aware of what's going on around you and realize that in general, women are not a strong upper body. They're usually not as tall. That gives us a huge advantage as men when it comes to moving things around, that we should be more than willing. And I'm training my son to be like this. Yes, it may be old school, but I think there is a need for more people. Again, treat people the way you would want to be treated. And people have those heavy bags. People need assistance. It's just the right thing to do. Next up on this list, walk your date home. If it's an older woman that was visiting maybe your mother-in-law, walk her to the bus stop. Get her as far as you can without going overboard. Point being is realize that, hey, elderly, women in general, they are a target because in general, thieves look at them and say, hey, this is someone that's relatively weaker. This is someone that, yeah, they may have mace, but most likely I'll be able to snatch their purse. Guys, it's simply about looking out for other people and also realizing, hey, if it's a buddy of yours, why not, accompany them back? 'Cause it's safer when you're in groups. If you're going to be traveling in a vehicle, it is something that you want to take the person as far as you can to make it easy. Now, there are some old school rules that a woman should always be to your right. Why? Because on your left, you're going to have your weapon and you want to be able to draw it. Points like that, I'm not going to, actually, is it opposite? Should they be on your left? Guys, correct me down in the comments. I'm not saying you got to get that fanatical, but I am saying in general, look out for other people. One thing I do is I always call an Uber for people if, I notice that person's been drinking, if they're a good friend of mine, and yeah, it costs me a little bit of money, but I know that I've taken care of them and that I've got them to the place they need to go. Point being is look after others. Sit up straight when you're speaking and engaging with people. So what's the big deal? Why does it matter? So in a 2018 study at Texas Tech University, they discovered that when you sit up straight when engaging with people, your anxiety levels shoot down. Your self-confidence shoots up. All of these great indicators, things that you want, and it plays into that old school rule of when you're engaging with somebody, when you're sitting at a table, sit up straight because it is good for you. Next up, when you want to have impact, when you've got something important to say, communicate those feelings through a handwritten letter. Seriously, in a busy electronic world, taking the time to write a handwritten letter is going to set you apart from the crowd. Next up, take your hat off when you walk into somebody's home. Why? It's simply a show of respect. So this harks back to the time of knights. The idea was you took your helmet off whenever you're indoors around other people because you just show, hey, I wasn't here to attack. People could see and they could recognize who you were. So it was a big thing back then. Nowadays, not so big. And most of the guys, they're not actually wearing headwear. But if you are wearing a baseball cap, you're wearing a lid, you are a hat wearer. Realize when you come into somebody's home, take the hat off. If you're in a public space, even if it's covered, then in that case, you don't have to take it off. But in general, to show respect, like whenever, it's the Pledge of Allegiance, whenever we're a flag, you're over in Thailand and they're giving respect to the king, it is something you do need to take your hat off to show respect. So what video to watch next? How about how manners maketh the man? Find out what that means and how to go from a caveman to a kingsman in this video, gents, right here. I'll link to it down in the description.